All right, friends. All right, I am going to start reading James and Giant Peach, chapter 18. Look how far we are through the book. I love that. All right, the last time we finished, they were in the peach and they came up to the top and they were looking around. All right, a minute later, they were out in the open, standing on the very top of the peach, near the stem, blinking their eyes in the strong sunlight and peering nervously around. What happened? Where are we? This is impossible! Unbelievable! Terrific! I told you we were bobbing up and down, the ladybug said. We're in the middle of the sea, cried James. And indeed they were. A strong current and a high wind had carried the peach so quickly away from the shore that already the land was out of sight. All around them lay vast black ocean, deep and hungry. Little waves were bibbling against the sides of the peach. But how did it happen? They cried. Were there not any fields? Where are the woods? Where is England? Nobody, not even James, could understand how in a world a thing like this could come about. Ladies and gentlemen, the old green grasshopper said, trying very hard to keep the fear and disappointment away from his voice. I am afraid that we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. Awkward, cried the earthworm. My dear old green grasshopper. We are finished. Every one of us is about to perish. I may be blind, but as much as I can see, this is clearly we're going to die. Off with my boots, shouted the centipede. I cannot swim with my boots. I cannot swim at all, cried the ladybug. Nor can I, wailed the glowworm. Nor I, said the spider. None of us three girls can swim with a single stroke. But you won't have to swim, said James calmly. We're floating beautifully, and sooner or later, a ship is bound to come along and pick us up. They all stared at him in amazement. Are you quite sure that we are not sinking? The ladybug asked. Of course I'm sure, answered James. Go look for yourself. They ran over to the side of the peach and peered down below. The boy is quite right, old green grasshopper said. We're floating beautifully. Now we all must sit down and keep perfectly calm. Everything will be right in the end. That's absolute nonsense, cried the earthworm. Nothing is ever all right in the end, and, well, you know it. Poor earthworm, the ladybug said, whispering in James's ear. He loves to make everything into a disaster. He hates to be happy. He is only happy when he is gloomy. But isn't that odd? But then again, I suppose just being an earthworm is enough to make a person pretty gloomy, don't you agree? If this peach is not going to sink, the earthworm was saying, and if we're not going to be drowned, then every one of us is going to starve to death instead. Do you realize that we haven't a thing to eat since yesterday morning? By golly, he's right, said the centipede. For once, Earthworm is right. Of course I'm right, said Earthworm, and we're not likely to find anything around here either. We shall get thinner and thinner and thirstier, and we shall die a slow and grisly death from starvation. I am dying already. I am slowly shriveling up for want of food. Personally, I would rather drown. But good heavens, you must be blind, said James. Well, I'm blind, snapped the earthworm. There's no need to rub it in. Well, I didn't mean it like that, said James. I'm sorry, but can't you see that? See? Shouted the poor earthworm. Can't I see? How can I see if I am blind? James took a deep breath. Can't you realize, he said patiently, that we have enough food here in this peach to last us for weeks and weeks? Where? Why, in the peach, of course. Our whole ship is made of food. Jumping Jersaphat! I never thought of that. My dear James, the old green grasshopper said. He laid in a wait, laying a front leg affectionately on James's shoulder. Affectionately, like rubbing it. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're so clever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are saved again. We are most certainly not, said the earthworm. You must be crazy. You can't eat the ship. It's the only thing that's keeping us up. Well, we shall starve if we don't, said the centipede. Well, we shall drown if we do, said the earthworm. Oh dear, said the old green grasshopper. Now we're worse off than before. Couldn't we just eat a little bit of it, said Miss Spider. I'm so dreadfully hungry. You can eat all you want, James answered. It would take us weeks and weeks to make any sort of dent in this enormous peach. Surely you can see that. Good heavens, he's right again, said the old green grasshopper, clapping his hands. It would take weeks and weeks, of course it would. But let's not go making a hole all over the deck. I think we'd better simply scoop out a little tunnel over here, a little tunnel over there, just as we come up. What an excellent idea, said Ladybug. What are you so worried about, Earthworm? You still look worried. What's the problem? The problem is, the problem is that there's no problem anymore. Everyone burst out laughing. Cheer up, Earthworm. They said, come and eat. And they all went over to the tunnel entrance and began scooping out great chunks of juicy golden-colored peach flesh. Oh, marvelous, said the centipede, stuffing it into his mouth. Delicious, said the old green grasshopper. Just fabulous, said the glowworm. Oh my, said the ladybug primly. What a heavenly taste. She looked at James and she smiled, and James smiled back at her. They sat down on the deck together, and both of them chewing away happily. You know, James, up until this moment, I have never in my life tasted anything except those little tiny green flecks that live on the rose bushes. They have perfectly delightful flavor, but this peach, ooh, isn't it glorious? Miss Spider said, coming over to join them. Personally, I had always thought that a big, juicy, cotton-webbed bluebottle beetle was the finest dinner in the world until I tasted this. Oh, what a flavor, the centipede cried. It's terrific. There's nothing like it. There never has been. And I should know because I personally have tasted all the finest foods in the world. Whereupon the centipede, with his mouth full of peach and juice running down his chin, suddenly burst into song. I've eaten many strange and scrumptious dishes in my time, like jellied gnats and daddy brats and earwig cooked in slime, and mice with rice. They're really nice when they're roasted in their prime. I've eaten fresh mud burgers, the greatest cooks there are, scrambled dregs and stink bugs' eggs, and pails of snails and lizards' tails and beetles by the jar. I often eat boiled slobbages. They're grand when served beside minced doodlebugs and curvied slugs. And have you ever tried mosquitoes' toes and wopfish roes, most delicately fried? I'm mad for crispy wasp stings on a piece of buttered toast, and pickled spines of porcupine, and then a gorgeous roast of the dragon's flesh, well hung, not fresh. It cost $1 at most, and if you come in barrels, you order it by post. I crave tasty tentacles of octopi for tea. I like hot dogs. I love hot frogs. And surely, you'll agree, a plate of soil with engine oil, a super recipe. For dinner on my birthday, I shall tell you what I chose. Hot noodles made from poodles and a slice of garden hose. Now come, the centipede declared, the burden of my speech. These foods are rare, beyond compare, but there's no doubt I'd go without 1,000,000 plates of each. For one small mite, one tiny bite of this fantastic peach. I think that's how he sang it. Everybody was feeling happy now. The sun was shining brightly out of a soft blue sky, and the day was calm. The giant peach was the sunlight glinting on the side, was like a massive golden ball sailing over the sea. Chapter 19. Look! Cried Centipede, just as they were finishing their meal. Look at that funny, thin, black thing gliding over the water there. They all swung around to take a look. There are 2 of them, said Miss Spider. There are lots of them, said the ladybug. What are they? Asked the earthworm, getting worried. They must be some kind of fish, said the old green grasshopper. Perhaps they have come along to say hello. They are sharks, said the earthworm. I'll bet you anything that they are sharks and they kind of come eat us up. What absolute rot, the centipede said, but his voice seemed suddenly to become a little shaky. I am positive they are sharks, said the earthworm. I know that they are sharks. And so, in fact, did everybody else, but they were too frightened to admit. There was a short silence. They all peered down anxiously at the sharks who were cruising slowly around the beach. Just assuming that they are sharks, the centipede said. There still couldn't be any danger if we're way up top, right? But even as he spoke, one of those thin black fins suddenly changed direction and came cutting swiftly through and paused and stared up at the company with small, evil eyes. Go away, they shouted. Go away, you filthy beast! Slowly, almost lazily, the shark opened his mouth, which was big enough to have swallowed a perambulator, and they lunged at the peach. They all watched aghast. And now, as though at a signal from a leader, all the other sharks came swimming towards the peach, and they clustered around it and began to attack it furiously. There must have been 20 or 30 sharks at least, pushing and fighting, lashing their tails and churning the water. Panic and pandemonium broke out instantly on top of the peach. Oh, we are finished now, cried Miss Spider, wriggling her feet. They will eat up the whole peach, and then there'll be nothing left for us to stand on, and they'll start on us. She is right, cried the ladybug. We are lost forever. Oh, I don't want to be eaten, wailed the earthworm. But they will take me first because I'm so fat and juicy and I have no bones. Is there nothing we can do? Asked the ladybug, appealing to James. Surely you can think of a way to help us out of this. Suddenly, they were all looking at James. Think, begged Miss Spider. Think, James, think. Their eyes waited upon him, tense, anxious, pathetically hopeful. There is something that I believe we might try, James Henry Trotter said softly. I'm not saying it will work. Tell us, cried the earthworm. Tell us quick. We'll try anything you say, but hurry, hurry, hurry. Be quiet and let the boy speak, said the ladybug. Go on, James. They all moved a little closer to him, and there was a longish pause. Go on, they cried frantically. Go on. And all the time they were waiting, they could hear the sharks threshing around the water below them. It was enough to make anyone frantic. Come on, James, the ladybug said, coaxing him. I'm afraid it's no good after all, James murmured. I'm terribly sorry. I forgot. We don't have any string. We'd need hundreds and hundreds of yards of string for this to work. What sort of string? Asked the old green grasshopper sharply. Well, I guess any sort, as long as it's strong. But, my dear boy, that's exactly what we do have. We've got all you want. How? Where? Said James. The silkworm, cried the old green grasshopper. Didn't you ever notice the silkworm? She's still downstairs. She never moves. She just lies there sleeping all day long, but we can easily wake her up and make her spin. And what about me, may I ask? Said Miss Spider. I can spin just as well as any silkworm. What's more, I can spin patterns. Can you make enough between you? Asked James. As much as you want. Can you do it quickly? Well, of course, of course. How strong would it be? Would it be strong? The strongest there is. It's as thick as your little finger. But why? What are you going to do? I'm going to lift this peach clear out of the water, James announced firmly. You're mad, cried the earthworm. It's our only chance. Well, that boy's crazy. He's joking. Go on, James, the ladybug said gently. How are you going to do it? Skyhooks, I suppose, jeered the centipede. Seagulls, answered James calmly. The place up there is full of seagulls. Look. They all looked around and saw a great mass of seagulls wheeling around and around in the sky. I'm going to take a long silk string, James went on, and I'm going to loop one end around the seagull's neck, and then I'm going to tie the other end of the string to the peach. He pointed to the peach stem, which was standing up like a short, thick mast in the middle of the deck. Then I'm going to get another seagull and do the same thing, and then another and another. Ridiculous, they shouted. Absurd, that poppycock, balderdash, madness. And the old green grasshopper said, how can a few seagulls lift this enormous peach? It would take like hundreds, thousands. There is no shortage of seagulls, James answered. Look for yourself. We probably need 400, maybe 500 seagulls, 600 maybe even 1,000. I don't know. I shall simply go on hooking them up into the stem until they lift us. They'll be bound to lift us at the end. It'll be like a balloon. You give someone enough balloons to hold, really enough, then up it goes. And a seagull has more lifting power than a balloon. So only if we have the time to do it. If only we were not sunk first by those awful sharks. There you go. You're absolutely off your head, said the earthworm. How on earth do you propose to get a loop of string around the seagull's neck? Come on, I suppose you're going to fly up there yourself and catch the seagull. That boy's dotty, said the centipede. Let him finish, said the ladybug. Go on, James, how would you do it? With bait. Bait? What sort of bait? With a worm, of course. Seagulls love worms, don't they? And luckily for us, we have the biggest, fattest, pinkest, juiciest earthworm in the world right here. You can stop right there, the earthworm said sharply. That's quite enough. Go on, the others said, beginning to grow interested. Go on. The seagulls have already spotted him, James continued. That's why there are so many of them circling right now. They daren't come down while the rest of us are standing here, so this is what— Stop! Cried the earthworm. Stop, stop, stop! I won't have it. I refuse. I— Be quiet, said the centipede. Mind your own business. I like that idea. My dear earthworm, you're going to be eaten anyway. So what difference does it make, whether it's sharks or seagulls? I won't do it! Why don't we hear what the plan is first? Said the old green grasshopper. I don't give a hoot what the plan is, cried the earthworm. I am not going to be pecked to death by a bunch of seagulls. You will be a martyr, said the centipede. I shall respect you for the rest of my life. So will I, said Miss Spider, and your name will be in all the newspapers. Earthworm gives life to save friends. But he won't have to give his life, James told them. Now listen to me. This is what we will do. What do you think his plan is?